welcome back to today's show. I'm Dean Morrison and this is The Truth Behind the Smiles. Within today's episode we'll be looking at charities that base themselves here in Northern Ireland and what we can do to help. We'll also be looking at how a charity operates within this modern and technical world. First up, before we even so much as thought about interviewing people within these charities, we had to set out and research what a charity is, what it does and how it operates. But first up, we're going to go to some people within the general public and ask their thoughts on what a charity is.
I think it's a wonderful thing to help people get back up on their feet when they're unable to.
Charities are there to help ones that are less advantaged than ourselves.
Charities are organisations that are set up to help people around the world that are more disadvantaged than we are.
Charity would be organisations set to help people who can't really help themselves or are desperate for help as well.
That's some diverse opinions out there. Well, not really, but it's good to see that a majority of the opinions on charity are positive. Now to go to more general public interviews and see what the same people think of how helpful charities are.
Very helpful. I mean, there are so many people in the world that are just under circumstances where they can't help themselves, so it's great to have other people that are there to help those in need.
Yes, charities are there, I think, to help everyone, just not your ordinary person, everybody.
Yes, they are helpful, and I think more people should be going out of their way to contribute to the charities, whether that's the government with tax breaks or people with donations.
Yes, charities are very helpful. They're a necessity needed in our current generation, for as even common countries like ourselves still struggle with the likes of homelessness and drug abuse.
So as you can see, people's thoughts and opinions on charities are rather positive. Now, within recent years, charities have got a bad rep due to a couple doing dealings in rather, let's say, nefarious schemes. So what we're looking to do within this documentary is change the bad reputation that they've gotten in recent years and a more positive outlook for everyone. We're on our way to two separate locations, the first up being the Malawi projects in Armagh and secondly the Southern Area Hospice in Newry. We'll be interviewing both people from the general staff and the management of these charities to see what it's like to work for a charity and how they feel they are giving back to the community.
Here we are at the Malawi projects in Armagh. I will be interviewing Fáinne Coleman, who leads much of the work in the charity.
Hello, my name is Fáinne Coleman. I work here in Ireland for the charity. I coordinate and manage part of the project in Armagh. This is where we're based. My role would be to, when we get goods in, to make sure they're fit for selling and to make sure that if anybody else is in need around, we would get a lot of phone calls that people is more misfortunate and is falling in hard times, that we're able to go out and help people here in Ireland, also in Malawi. We do quite a lot of work. It involves like going out to people's homes, getting donations, bringing them here, seeing what we can take to Malawi and trying to utilise to get money for the project. So we would go to car boot sales, we would sell some of our goods here on a daily basis, and we work very closely with our volunteers that can give us whenever hours they can give every week. From the very start, about 3 years ago I got involved with the Malawi project.
So it's still a relatively young charity?
Yes, very much so.
And what is the toughest part of the job for you?
The toughest part would be sometimes we're up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh really?
Yes, really, driving a van and going to car boot sales, maybe 50 miles away, late nights out in people's houses picking up donations.
Yeah, there was talk of going to Derry at one point.
Yes,
that would be fairly typical.
That would be typical. We would
go 80
go
miles from here. Yeah.
80 miles, you know, that would be typical, maybe on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You know, this charity, as you said, it's only beginning, but it went from very small to large very soon. The difference that we make in people's lives here in Ireland, you know, we have a lot of people that comes here that fall on misfortunes, and some of the donations that are given to us, we're able to help people out. Also, the difference we have made in Malawi is huge. We have now, you know, a scheme up and running that, you know, 450 children who were fed maybe once a week are now fed every day to go to education. We are all about hand up instead of hand out.
Yeah.
They're now planting their own seeds, they're able to feed, and it's a knockdown effect on the whole society in Malawi. For people is very generous, and we're very lucky and very, you know, that everybody that has heard of the Malawi project has given very freely. And I would just encourage people, if they have unwanted goods or anything that they think they can help out with our project, even time, we'd greatly appreciate it.
So we are here at the St John's House in Newry, where the Centenary Hospice is based, where I will be interviewing two staff members. First up will be Denise Doyle.
My name is Denise Doyle, and I work as Community Fundraising Officer in the fundraising department of the Centenary Hospice. I've worked for the hospice for over 10 years now. I've done a few different roles within the fundraising department, but I just really enjoy what I do, which is why I've been here for so long as well. Yeah, I enjoy everything. I just enjoy the mix of what the job brings every day. It's just really, really different. You don't know what you're going to get when you come in the mornings. We do like street collections. I do organise overseas treks, just working with general community groups, people in the public, schools. Just every day is really, really different. From coming to the hospice, you know, you don't really know how it's going to affect you as well. Obviously, the hospice does a lot behind closed doors. You do hear a lot about the work that they do, but I think being part of that and working with them really shows you just the support that they get, and it's just amazing. The general public can get involved in so many ways within the hospice, whether it be through volunteering opportunities, working on our reception desks, working on the wards, helping with fundraising events, taking part in a fundraising event, or simply making a donation or putting a pound in a bucket when you see the collectors out. It's really all different ways of getting involved with us.
That was interesting about the fundraising side of the Southern Area Hospice Charity. Now here's Louise talking about the nursing side of the charity.
My name's Louise, and I'm the clinical sister on the wards. I'm here 30 plus years. Well, we have a 14-bedded inpatient unit for patients suffering from end-of-life care for patients with diseases such as cancer, motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis, and sort of lots of other, you know, end-of-life diseases. We also have patients who come in for blood transfusions, maybe for a day procedure, and go home again. We also have outpatients clinics in Dungannon and Craigavon and Daisy Hill, and we have day hospice here and in Dungannon as well. Well, obviously, I enjoy the job, or I wouldn't have stayed here as long, but I do like working with families and patients, and particularly at a time in their lives when things are difficult for them, and just being able to see them through that, you know, meeting different people on a daily basis, really. But at the end of the day, we have to remember our role in it is to provide care for patients and families. Some of that has changed, some of it has become more difficult, patients' needs have become more difficult, and you're always conscious that you have to work within a tight budget. I suppose every patient and every family has their own, you know, story and background and before they came here, I suppose, but we've had quite a lot of young patients. We had a young girl a couple of years ago who was, you know, the same age as my own daughter and things like that. That's always much more difficult to deal with and cope with. I suppose, I mean, we are quite dependent on the community from a fundraising perspective, and we've been very lucky up to now, particularly locally, that the community has, you know, been there for us and brought in a lot of fundraising. I suppose we all want to believe that there's an onus on everybody in the community to help, but as I said, there's particularly a lot of local charities out there that are all looking for money out of the same pot, I suppose. So, you know, we just have to hope that the community will continue to back us in the way they have done up to now.
I think to date I've worked with 5 charities, both here and in London as well. My first job was an organisation called Harmony Community Trust. They were based in Belfast and Strangford. It was a large house where young people would go for weekends or summer times. How it came about was way back in the 70s, unfortunately at the time of conflict in Northern Ireland, a young man was at wrong place, wrong time, and was killed. His parents, wanting to do something about, so it wasn't such a negative thing, they've set up this Harmony Community Trust, which was really as it was a cross-border or cross-community project to help young people. So I started off there. After that, I then moved to London. I worked in Childline as a telephone counsellor for 2 years, and you would all know what Childline would be, a helpline for young people. From there I moved on to New Horizon Youth Centre. It was based in King's Cross and very much like an ordinary youth centre where you table tennis and football and pool and all that kind of stuff. But our clientele were young homeless people, 16 to 21, who are actually living on the streets of London. And we provided services there. We had advice for them. We would try and get them housed, try to get them into training, but also just provided a safe place for them to come, get a wash, get hot food, and just sit and chat to people and be somewhere safe. I was there about 9 years, and then we moved back to Northern Ireland, and I then worked with the Voice of Young People in Care, which provided support services for young people who were in care, such as young people in residential homes, people in foster care, and then some people who just were still living at home but were working with social services as well. And my most recent job is I've just recently started working with Women's Aid, which again is a national organisation dealing with the victims of domestic violence. I did my degree in youth and community work, and I have worked for government organisations. I've worked with the Belfast Education Library Board and the Southern Education Library Board in their youth service, so I have worked in that field. But a lot of the work that I'd be interested in would be run by charities, and working with young people would be a lot of the services are charities that provide that service. I suppose all charities are there because they're filling a need. But I suppose people that I have worked with have been vulnerable young people, and they always provide challenges. Some more difficult than others. When you're working with young homeless people in London, you'll be saying goodbye to them at 5 o'clock that evening, and really not knowing what was going to happen that night if they were sleeping on the streets. A lot of violence, a lot of aggression, verbal as well as physical aggression towards them. And sometimes you didn't know if you were going to see them the next day or not. So that was very, very difficult. But then when you're working with in very difficult circumstances, then the rewards are great as well. And when you get somebody into housing or get them into an education programme that sets them on their way again, then that's very rewarding as well. So I don't think any one charity is better or harder than another, but they fulfill a very important need in society. It's what life throws at you, and sometimes we've dealt with difficult situations where we've members of our family who have had different forms of cancer over the years. So cancer charities would be very close to my heart, and I've done some voluntary work with Marie Curie. I've done some work with Cancer Focus. I'm on the committee, a local committee here for Cancer Focus, and also with the Southern Area Hospice. We've done some fundraising for them because they're fabulous, and unfortunately we know firsthand what a fabulous organisation they are. We also have family and friends who work for charities, and very often you're volunteered, whether you want it or not, to do some work with them as well.
Yes, I know.
Now back to the point at hand, the running of a charity organisation. There's two main factors of this, and this would be the jobs and funding. Other factors may include public opinion. Now within funding, the main areas of income are grants, contracts and trading. Now I'll just give you a rundown of all these key points, starting with donations and gifts. Now these are the main sources of income for any charity. Normally they are given by the general public or individuals. Now these are either left as a fundraising appeal or given as a legacy. This makes up a majority of a charity's income of what they can give back to the people. Raising funds, however, can be time consuming and contain an element of risk. This element of risk could include things like the fundraising events not going well and not raising enough money to balance out how much they spent on an event. Now, some other questions and things an organisation will have to cover regarding fundraising is things like, is the fundraising effective and economic? Is the fundraising legal and on the books? Is fundraising ethical, or does it breach anything? And could the fundraising damage the reputation of the charity in any way? Another part is grants, which either can be made by a government or other charitable organisations and public sectors and charitable trusts. Contracts is a form between two or more companies. If one fails to do something, they are covered in a formal agreement. Trading is when the organisation in question decides to sell goods and services to members or the general public. There is a certain flexibility in what the organisation can spend this income on and what they can sell. Equity capital is when someone provides external investment for a permanent stake in the organisation. The next main element of a charity organisation is the jobs. Now, jobs are key to a successful running of a charity organisation. First up in jobs is management and administration. Now, like all good businesses, a charity needs a strong management and administration team at its core for effective running. The next key area of a charity is raising awareness. Now, this is to make people donate, as without that awareness level, there would be no one to donate to a charity. Now, this can come in the form of publicity, marketing and communications, representing the organisation at events, and awareness campaigns, and even small fundraisers that would be in local communities. Another area is the volunteer sector, which is benefiting greatly from social media as it allows fast and easy targeting of potential donors and organisation of fundraisers and events. The next key area is volunteer management. Volunteer managers tend to keep track of the recruitment and organisation of a charity's volunteer network. Next key area is policy development and research. Now, charities need to raise awareness, and a good way to do this is to show people how a charity operates within its policies and showing them what they do. Next area is fundraising. Every charity exists to raise money for its cause. Now, doing this through fundraising is like a real blend of marketing and sales in any other business, and for charities it is the key element for their income and support for the people in their network. There is a wide range of specialist roles within charity fundraising. These would be things like community, corporate and direct marketing, events, legacy, major donor, and regional and statutory, even trust donations. Of course, every charity is structured a little differently, but each and every single one of them, no matter how big or small, will require experts in these fields for a successful running of their organisation.
So, I'm Carla O'Neill.
And I'm Adam McGuire.
We are both interviewing our chosen charities, which is, mine is the Southern Area Hospice.
And mine is the Malawi Projects.
So, why I chose the Southern Area Hospice was because I have personal connections with it, as I've had family who had been in that hospice and they did really good work, but sadly my family member passed away. But having them tell us how they've worked in these charities and how we're able to help made an impact on this. And then why?
Well, essentially I was roped into it over the course of the summer, so I became involved that way. I did sort of a little job for them here, a little job for them there, just organisational stuff. But from that, I gave a little hint that we were going to be doing a documentary video about them. So we've kept in contact and we've been doing more and more stuff for them. So all in, I suppose, preparation for this, getting close to them, I suppose, and letting them get comfortable with me and the team, so we could interview them better, or it wouldn't be as awkward whenever we're filming the actual video. So how did you feel about interviewing the people at the Southern Area Hospice?
Well, to me, I felt awkward at first, but as I continued on asking questions, I was like feeling more into it and like more relaxed and all, and like even just seeing them again after everything's been through, it was like more of my mindset. It's alright, you're good, you can do this kind of thing.
You were familiar with them?
Yes.
Okay, that's always good. And so for me as well, I interviewed quite a lot of the members from the Malawi Projects. We got Foncha Coleman and consider them the two heads of the charities. That was really great. From the Malawi Projects, we also got to do a gala event, which not only helped out the Malawi Projects, but it also was helping out PIPS, which is another really good charity. I'm sure we'll focus on that in this documentary.
In addition, with the Southern Area Hospice, my mum actually worked with charities, like many charities. It was 5 that she mentioned, and actually interviewing her was much more relaxed than the Southern Area Hospice because I've known my mum since I was born. So, and she's been working before that, and like she tells me a lot about her work and all, so I was very happy to actually interview her.
Join us next time where we'll be discussing more of the big topics out there today, like Brexit. Well, maybe it might be an idea to hold fire on that until somebody knows what's happening. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.